Here we go. Alrighty. Let's see. Let's unmute people right now for right this minute. Trying to unmute everybody. We're going to mute people here in a bit. Trying to get people on video because I like seeing people's faces. I like faces. So, let's do that. There we go. Now I'm starting to see some faces. How's everyone doing today so far?
Doing excellent, Mike.
Cool, cool.
Great.
Cool. So we got Ray, we got Beth. Beth, you look familiar. Maybe it's Matt, you're one of those familiar.
People always say that.
You got one of
Those generic faces.
I get that sometimes. It's weird for me because sometimes I get I sometimes get I know somebody who looks just like you, and then you have a completely unique look. And so I get like both of those from people. And so it's kind of an interesting thing. So we've got that different thing kind of going on. It's interesting. Zoom, I think, has been inundated with modifications over the past few months, and so I'm seeing new and new modifications all the time. And so I actually, just before I came on this recording, I was seeing that they're requiring a password starting July 19th for all Zooms and stuff like that. So I'm like, okay, cool. I need to admit this person, And so that's kind of there. So got some people. We're going to start out now. I've got a lot of you people on unmute. I'm going to be admitting people, so I might be diverting my bottom. So that's kind of what's going on. I'm going to ask a lot of you people just to mute yourselves for right now. I'm going to be talking a lot myself just at the beginning, explaining a bit about me, explaining some about NLP, how I got into it, what it's done for me, what timeline therapy has done for me, and hypnosis, which was kind of interesting. I had no idea I was getting into a hypnosis training. When I got into a hypnosis training, I was kind of shocked with that part. I was like, what? I went to a training, I was going to tell the story later on, I think, in the training, but let's just start with this right now. When I went to my 7-day training, when I went to the training, it was a 7-day training. And the first day when I went in there, the reason I went there was just for the NLP, and I'll tell more about that later. And they're like, yeah, you're going to get certified in NLP coaching certificate, with the American Board of NLP, and a timeline therapy certificate with the American Board of Timeline Therapy. And I was like, what's that? I had no idea what it was. And you're going to be certified with the American Board of Hypnosis. And I was like, I'm one of those guys who I've done trainings for years. So when I say I've done trainings, I mean that in two senses. One, I've gone to many, many trainings, and two, I've done many, many trainings. Started doing it when I was about 19, and I'm 47 right now. So I started doing trainings when I was 19. Did a lot of different things. I went to Brazil for 2 years as a religious missionary and was trainings, 7 days a week, and did trainings there. And then, learned Portuguese there and in Brazil, and just did a lot of trainings. And then I've worked for different companies where I've done a lot of trainings. became a nurse. We'll get more into that. And for some reason, always got put into positions of leadership and and told to do trainings for people. And then I've worked for E500 companies who trained people in doing presentations and trained people in coaching, as well as Fortune 500 companies training their management people in how to do presentations and trainings. And so I'm always usually the front row Joe, right in the middle. And so I was sitting there, and when they said, Steph and Shay, some of my personal mentors who I love and adore, they said to me, they're like, hey, so, you're going to get a certificate in hypnosis. And I had gone there for a training in NLP. I was like, wait a second. So you're saying by the end of this week, I'm going to be certified in hypnosis? And they're like, yes. I was like, okay, fine. There you go. That's cool. So that was kind of an interesting thing. So I've told you a teeny bit of background on me, but just a teeny bit more. My name is Michael Vanderplas. I am a certified master practitioner in timeline therapy, neurolinguistic programming, and hypnosis. I'm also a registered nurse. I have a bachelor's of nursing science. I'm actually working towards my nurse practitioner right now as well. I like people. I had my first degree was in logistics and operational management. But before all of that stuff, I was just a little teeny kind of a Rocky Mountain boy. I call myself a Rocky Mountain boy, and the people from this area here in Salt Lake City, Utah, and Idaho, Montana, all that different stuff, just Rocky Mountain boys. And so I grew up in a small town called Layton, Utah. It's about a half an hour north of Salt Lake. And there was about 30,000 people in the city when I was growing up. Just a quick teeny background on me. Mom and dad got divorced when I was about 4.5. I was the youngest of 5. Mom's legally blind. So I did a lot of raising myself since dad wasn't around and mom had a hard time. And so I thought it was a very interesting life and a very good life. And actually really, it was difficult at times, but I'm crazy grateful for it. Because it taught me so much. It gave me so much opportunity to learn. Like I look at that now. But when I was growing up, I didn't have a whole bunch of support. And so I didn't do well in school when I was growing up. I remember asking teachers, my mom would always tell me at the beginning of the school year, she'd say, there's no dumb questions. Ask your teacher at the beginning of the year. Ask your teacher whatever question you want to ask them. And so for about 4 or 5 years running, I asked my teacher what the difference between a noun and a verb was. And I kept on getting the same answer, which was, you know what that is, stop wasting our time. And so I literally didn't know what the difference between a noun and a verb was until I was 19 years old learning the Portuguese language in the 3rd best language training program in the world, which is here in Utah. And when I graduated high school, I barely graduated high school with a 1.999 grade point average. My daughter just walked by. We always joke around about this. I'm like, why couldn't they just round that up to a 2.0, It's like, and we've joked around about that quite a bit nowadays since I've, received different degrees in college and different certificates with different training people. And so, it's really interesting. Came from some difficult places, but been able to achieve some good stuff. And I realized at age 47 that I'm probably closer to, I probably have more years of history behind me than I do of future. And so with that, I realize I've been able to look back on my life and realize that one of the good things with my life that I appreciate is that I've had the opportunity to serve and help others. And with that, I'm guessing, since a lot of you are contacts through Mark, that a lot of you people are the same. And so with that, I want to say thank you to all of you for not just being here today, and not just thank you if you do continue on with the training, but thank you for being you. It's always an honor for me when I get the opportunity to communicate with people who I believe are somewhat like me, and people who try and find value and add value to this world, especially through helping other people. And through knowing Mark and him telling me about some of you, I believe that to be who you are. And so I'd like for all of you just to recognize that in yourselves and know that I appreciate you. Whether this is the only moment that we meet or if we have a long friendship and relationship for the rest of our lives. Thank you for being here on this planet. Thank you for helping out other people. I really do believe this planet needs that. So how I got into NLP, basically, as I was saying before, I worked for a Inc. 500 company, training people how to train people, and also training people how to do life coaching and how to do trainings. And with that company, they're based here in Salt Lake City. The guy was fantastic who taught me. The guy's name is Kirk Duncan. He's a fantastic guy, super nice guy. We'd go over to his house quite a bit, talked with him personally, still send him text messages a lot. He'll send messages back to me, and just received a lot of learning from him. And I started building up some of my coaching clientele, and I started doing some stuff, and it was somewhat systematic, but not completely organized. And one time we were having a training slash barbecue at his house. And when we were having that training slash barbecue at his house, I was talking with one of the other lead trainers, and that lead trainer, he said to me, he's like, you seem like you've come a long way. You seem like you've done a lot of things. I've been watching you over the past 2 years, but I really think that you should do a training in NLP. And it's interesting because I'd read a book on NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, about 3 years before. Fantastic book. If you guys want to pick it up, I recommend it. It's called Introduction to NLP, and it is fantastically that. It's a good introduction to NLP. And I'd read that book, and I remember it had made 2 impressions on me, and in a huge way. And I said to this guy, I said to Wendell, I was like, Wendell, I've been looking for a good trainer for the past 2 or 3 years. I can't remember how long it had been, but I can't find anybody. I've got a very dear friend also in near Des Moines, Iowa, about 45 minutes south, in this teeny little 410 person town called Truro. But he runs a big business that actually sends material to Tony Robbins, that Tony Robbins buys. And I'd asked that guy, I'd asked Brian, who's been a dear friend of mine for over 25 years. I was like, Brian, where did you learn NLP? He's like, oh, I learned it from this fantastic guy, but he's not teaching anymore. And then I looked up trainings online for NLP, and some of them seemed a lot like they were trying to either train people in how to, at least this is the feeling I got, how to manipulate other people out of money, or like through sales, which sales are an important aspect of growing your business and in life. And I deeply believe that we can serve through sales. But some of these just seems kind of sketchy. Or I noticed that a lot of these were kind of like, these NLP trainings were for pickup artists, for like guys to pick up on girls. And I was like, both of those things seemed really sketchy for me. And I'm very kinesthetic. I'm very emotional feeling, and it just didn't feel right, some of these different training people. And so when I was talking with Wendell, I was like, that's great. I'd love to do a training in NLP, but I haven't found anybody who I think is trustworthy. I haven't found anybody who I think is ethically on point with the way I want to learn NLP. And so I said, do you know anybody? He goes, yeah, I did this training with this company years ago, like 7-8 years ago, been around for years. The guy who did this training learned from the founders, and he's doing this training, but I'm not even sure if they're around anymore. So he told me the name of the company. I checked the company out, looked online, got a call from them, and it was a sales call, but this, and it was in December. I remember the call was in December, and they said, hey, we've got a training in about 2 weeks. You should come to that training. And I was like, nope, I'm going to have to come to the one in March. I'm going to have to come to the one in March. They're like, no, you should come to the one in 2 weeks. I was like, no, I'm doing trainings through February. I can't be there till March. And I remember that the cost of it was just under $5,000 for that. And that wasn't including that was not including the hotel, the travel, which isn't bad for me because I live in Salt Lake. So worst case scenario, I could have just gotten in my car and driven if I couldn't have found a cheap flight. But I remember just thinking to myself, I've got to go. And I've always found value in trainings that I've gone to. I've always created the value in myself. Been like, okay, if I'm going to this training, I'm going to create the value in it. I'm going to get something of value from that training. And so I remember thinking, yeah, I'm going to go. And I remember thinking, like, this person probably isn't really believing that I'm going to go to this training. But I remember I was like, okay, I'll put down a deposit now, and I'll make a few payments over the next few months, and I'm going to go to this training. And somehow I made the $5,000 in those few months. So December, January, February, and it was beginning of March. It was like the 8th of March. So I think like in 4 months, I'd made like enough payments to pay that amount. Hey, Mark, good to see you on. So anyways, that's what I did. And I just went to the training, and I remember thinking that it was really cool. And one of the reasons why I wanted to go is because I wanted to get better at learning and understanding people's unconscious mind, which I already had some understanding of, but I wanted to understand the unconscious mind a little bit better, how to use what I thought was going to be secret wordings of how to tick into their minds so that I could get better at sales, so that I could help more people with the things that they needed to get over in their own lives. And that's kind of why I got into the NLP training. Went down there, and they taught me that stuff. They taught me a lot of stuff, which is the same material that I'm going to be teaching you guys when you show up, when you come to the training. I went to the training, and day one, by the time I went to lunch, which was about a 3-hour session, I remember I went to lunch with like 3 or 4 people, and we were sitting at lunch at this little teeny place across from the hotel where they were having it. And I remember just thinking to myself, holy crap, that was some really good information in the first 3 hours. And the other people who were with me, they were high level people. They were kicking butt in life, and they were saying the same thing, which is just interesting because this is information that I teach people now. And so I remember that was interesting. And then by the end of that day, I was like, that's great information. And then we kept on going on. But then we came to what then was day 5 in our training. For you guys, it will be day 3, which would be, I'm going to tell you guys what the layout of our training will be like here in a little bit. It'll be day 3. It'll be the first day of the live in-person training. So I'll explain that a bit. But it was day 5 of their training, day 3 of our training, how we do it. When we went over this technique called timeline therapy. Some of you have maybe been introduced to it through Mark. Some of you haven't. Some of you may have been introduced to it through me. And I went to that, and I remember when I first tried the technique, I was unsuccessful at it. And not only was I unsuccessful at it, but the person who was trying to do it with me, she was unsuccessful at it, both as the practitioner, the person trying to help the other person with it, as well as the client. The two of us were unsuccessful at it. And the two of us were, through this entire training up to that point, we'd been just killing it. We'd just been like nailing it down, like everything. We'd been like some of the stars of the training. We'd just been like, when there was a question, hands up. And she's this physical trainer. I was about to say she still is, but she's this physical trainer, originally from the Ukraine, but living in New York. And she's just a fantastic lady, Susan. And I remember, I think because we had so much pressure on ourselves and we weren't relaxed a little bit, we kind of got psyched out in our heads and we didn't do it. And I remember that kind of frustrated me, but to the point to where I almost went home from the training. Gosh, I wasn't thinking of telling this story. But something interesting, I realized in my life that when I start telling a story that I wasn't planning on telling, that there's usually somebody out there that needs to hear it. So hopefully one of you guys is hearing this. Sometimes we run towards success with such strength, with such desire, that we run faster than our forces permit us. And sometimes it's okay to take a step back and relax. So I did that. And I helped out other people to take the test, because there is a test to get your certificate in NLP, timeline therapy, and hypnotherapy. There is a test that we'll be giving you guys. I'm going to give you a heads up on it now, but it is open friend, open book, stuff like that. So on this night, I just forgot about the fact that I had failed at that thing. There is no failure, only feedback. And a lot of pretty ideas going through my mind right now. And I just went and sat in this conference room with these other people. And I had most of the answers done on my test already. And so I was just giving answers to people left and right as I was answering the last 7 or 8 questions. I think the test for the practitioner level is 58 questions. So we were doing that, and I went to bed. The next morning I got up and I went to a practice session. And this really cool dude, Jeff, he sat down with me, did timeline therapy with me, where we were focusing on my emotion of anger. And within 15 minutes, this dark friend, and I've never been like this ridiculously angry person. I've usually been a fairly nice guy, but we all hold anger at different times in our lives. It's just an emotion that's there. It's a secondary emotion to sadness and fear and pain. And so it had been there. And But within these few minutes, I received learnings from my own unconscious mind, or maybe it's from inspiration from a higher power, wherever it comes from. But I would receive these learnings that helped me to alleviate these negative emotions and that negative emotion of anger. And I remember just feeling weird because I was like, that's not there. It's not there. And I remember Jeff being so cool because he was just sitting there and he just kind of let me process it. So that was a cool day. And then we went forward. We did the hypnotherapy part of it, and we finished. And I remember I was just so amazed at the training, that it cost me just like literally just like a few dollars, under 5,000, the practitioner training. And that I was so amazed by that I went to the back of the room and signed up for a master practitioner training, the next level, because there's almost always a next level training. And if there's not a next level training in the program that you're doing, somebody else has got another training. You can spend $1 billion if you want to. I personally don't have that yet, but I went to this other training, and I can't remember what it was. It was like 9,000, 8 or 9,000 or something like that. But I signed up for that, got on a payment plan, and went to that training. And that was a 16-day training with 1 day off in between. But that was only like 3 months away. And that was also in Vegas. So I did drive to that one because I wanted a car for access to that one. And I got resourceful, found a way to make it work, had a friend who lived down there in the worst area of Las Vegas. I didn't know that until I got down there, but literally like probably kitty corner from the worst 7-Eleven in Las Vegas. And I would just drive about 20 minutes every day to the training, which was in Henderson. And I just did that for the 2 weeks. And then I was at that training, and at that training, it was mind blowing. Learned even more systematic how to perform a breakthrough session on a client. So with the practitioner training, and then with like the addition of the master practitioner training, I had just such a set idea of how to change somebody's life in 1-2 days of like long sessions, like 3-4 hours, and then maybe do some additional coaching on the side, which I've kind of changed that paradigm a little bit now on how I do it. That I was so amazed with that, and that was in July, that they were offering a training on how to get certified to train other people. Well, one of my loves, which I mentioned before, is the country of Brazil. From 19 to 21, like I said, I was a religious missionary for the Mormon Church. I realize it's a non-traditional Christian church. I do still see it as Christian-based. I don't practice it quite as much as I used to, but I personally have a firm believing in Christ. I don't bring that into the training. If any of you do want some information in the training, I do offer a 1 to 2 hour session as an extra on the first night. If somebody wants to come after on the first night, where I do give some information of how NLP applies to Christianity. And that's just something I offer, and that's outside of the training, no obligation, anything like that. But that's for some people who are interested in that. Because it was something interesting for me to find out, to learn over the years. But what I did is I did that for 2 years in Brazil, and I gained this love. And I thought, what if I can become a trainer in neurolinguistic programming in timeline therapy, in hypnotherapy, to where I can get certified by the American board in those different things. And can I certify people not just in the United States, but in Brazil as well? And they said, yeah. And they said, you'd actually be the first person with the certification with the American board who would translate that stuff into Portuguese. And so I went for it. So then I spent a lot more money for that training. And I went to that training, and that was in Sydney, Australia, actually. And that was a 28-day training in Sydney, Australia. And I thought that I was good at doing speaking, presentations, trainings. And that training kicked my butt. They actually, the year before, had a former Navy SEAL who tapped out of the program. Didn't finish the program. He's like, this is too mind-bending. I can't do this. But it was a great training. It was the largest training that they had ever done. It was called Trainers Training. And the reason why it was the largest is it was the last training in which my mentor in neurolinguistic programming, Tad James, was teaching at. And so it was the last one where he was actually in attendance performing some of the training. His company still does trainings, with his wife doing part of the trainings, and then some of my friends, one of them, Simon, coming in from Africa doing the trainings. Some of my other friends helping out with some of the trainings. I've been asked to, on occasion, to help out with some of those trainings as well. And so that's kind of my path of how I got into NLP and training and doing it. So I've been asked basically, what is NLP? And some people have asked me that over the years, and what is NLP? The textbook answer that you'll get from most people, and this is something that runs rampant as a knee-jerk response answer from a lot of people when they say, what is NLP? Is the knee-jerk response answer is, it is the study of excellence. And that's true. In addition to that, that seems to me kind of super vague and kind of airy-fairy and not really specific enough. For me, basically, what NLP is it is the ability to impact lives. What it stands for, neurolinguistic programming, I think really helps to define what it is as well. And what that is neuro, brain, linguistic, language, programming the mind. And so this is a very bold statement, yet I believe it to be true. And that is that with neurolinguistic programming, we help reprogram the mind through utilizing language. Now, sometimes that language is body language. Sometimes that language is silence. And sometimes that language is words. And it's not just random words. It's finding language patterns that will help open up, just kind of like a vault on the top of the brain, which is actually connected to the mind. Just kind of open it up, just open it up to where we can drop information down into the unconscious mind, help reprogram it, and then kind of close it back up so that people can have a more fulfilling life in whatever is their value of enjoying life. And for me, that's a very beautiful thing, because I personally believe that we have one life. And I think that we should live that to our fullest. With this life, there's a lot of difficulties that we will face. We always do. But I think that if we can minimize it or find a way to enjoy life and learn from those difficulties, that gives us more fulfillment in life. And so neurolinguistic programming, we teach different techniques, we teach different skills that were garnered from amazing psychiatrists, psychologists, therapists, and people who have been crazy successful in different aspects of their lives. We model what they do, we find the successful things, we model what we do, and then we play those things back and we utilize those techniques. If we find a way to tweak it a bit, then we tweak it a little bit. And that's kind of some of the things that we do. So neurolinguistic programming originally came around in the mid-1970s. It was derived by two guys, Richard Bandler, John Grinder. They were both from University of California, Santa Cruz, UCSC. One of them was a professor of psychology. The other one was a student of linguistics, doing his graduate school. And they both kind of came together because they were studying one psychologist from Germany named Franz Perls. And what this guy did is he was from France, I'm sorry, if I remember correctly, from France. So what he did is he did this concept, no, he was German, Gestalt therapy. So he did this concept called Gestalt therapy. And so they loved that idea of Gestalt therapy. And they utilized some of his techniques. One of his major techniques was called the empty chair, which we utilize in NLP as a technique called perceptual positions. It's modified a little bit from that. That's taught during this training, along with VK dissociation, which is another technique derived from Gestalt therapy by Franz Perls. So they kind of talked about that stuff and they thought that's really cool. And then they saw another lady who was a psychologist, and her name is Virginia Satir, and she's the mother of basically modern family therapy and couples therapy. And they realized that she seemed to almost have this magical technique to where she could tie in and tie down and almost blow out what somebody's problem was just by asking some questions for a few minutes. And they thought that was so amazing that they actually worked with her and wrote 2 books about it. And they just kind of thought that was magical. And they saw this amazing these techniques by her, and that's called meta model, which we go over in the training as well. That's within the first 2 days of our training as well. Then they decided to look at this other guy over here whose name was Milton Erickson, Dr. Milton Erickson. Now, Dr. Milton Erickson, the guy is a genius. Tony Robbins, and how many of you know who Tony Robbins is? Raise your hand. So Tony, he knows a thing or two. For any of you who don't know him, he's not dumb. And there's some people who don't like him. I personally love him, but you can't deny that the guy knows a thing or two. His statement, and I've watched this video many times, he talks about Milton Erickson, and he says he was the best hypnotherapist ever. And it's true. He practiced hypnotherapy from 1920 till when he died in 1980. He was originally a physician, and then he got into hypnotherapy. And in fact, it was because of Milton Erickson in 1954, the American Medical Association, the AMA, they were going to disbar him because he was doing hypnotherapy. But he talked with him, convinced him over a few years that in 1957, they accepted hypnotherapy as a valuable tool for some medical and psychological treatments. And so Richard Bandler, John Grinder, they had heard of Milton Erickson, so they went down to New Mexico, near where he was living, and they visited him, and they started trying to talk to him because he had amazing results with people. He'd have, one session with these people and he'd blow out their problems completely as well. And they thought that was magic. And when they started talking to him, they thought that he was a senile old man, because this was near the end of his life. They thought he was a senile old man because he'd start these stories and then he wouldn't finish them. And what he was doing is he was starting metaphors. In NLP, we call it opening loops. And we talk a little bit about that during our training as well, how to teach metaphors. Because teaching through metaphors, teaching through stories, I wonder if somebody started telling stories at the beginning of this little webinar that we're doing today. I wonder if anybody started telling stories. Maybe someone did. Might have been me. I don't know. But maybe we learn through telling stories. And maybe that's a good way to get people drawn in to a way of learning. And maybe those stories have a point. And so they started realizing that these stories that he was starting and then not finishing until a later period of time maybe had a point. And so they started studying him, and then they started modeling him. And then in addition to that, they started looking at different people, and they got really huge into the study and research by an amazing psychologist who actually passed away in 1963, a man who I love, adore, and respect greatly, by the name of Dr. Carl Gustav Jung, an amazing psychologist. And Carl Jung has probably studied deeper into the understanding of the unconscious mind than almost anyone else that I can think of on the planet. There's one person who I can think of who has probably searched a little bit deeper, and that would be Friedrich Nietzsche. But that was more philosophy, not as much psychological work. But they start taking a lot of his ideas and a lot of his understanding, and they started utilizing all this material. And when they started out, they didn't have a lot of students. And so they had basically three primary, what was the word? What's the word for it? Main students. I forget what the apprentices. That's the word I was looking for. They had three primary apprentices who kind of really studied under them, that really kind of started launching what NLP is. And those three students, the first one was a guy named Richard Dilts, who's added great value to NLP. The second one was a guy by the name of Tony Robbins, who we already talked about a bit. And Tony, he basically is trained at the same level that you'll be certified at after coming to the NLP practitioner training. And then the third person is the man who trained me, Tad James. And so they trained these three guys, and those guys kind of spread out, started training a lot of other people. And then the study of NLP has just grown and grown from there. And so that's kind of the basis of where NLP came from. Kind of what NLP is that reprogramming of the brain through understanding some concepts of body language. We go over eye patterns, and also through understanding verbal language, the context in which somebody is saying things, not just the content, not just the words that they're saying, but why they're saying something, understanding which framework the person is saying the words in. And I'm going to tell you guys right now, after coming to this training, it's probably going to be very, very difficult, at least not for a few months, maybe for the rest of your life. It's going to be difficult for you to watch any news channel ever, because you start watching it and you start realizing how you're being manipulated. It will also be eye-opening to see what advertising is doing it when you watch a commercial, especially commercials about medications. Me being a nurse, that gets me somewhat frustrated sometimes. But we get into understanding that a little bit. But understanding NLP a little bit more, what it kind of goes over And the main focus of it that's kind of tied into that idea of impacting lives is the focus on 3 different areas. And those 3 different areas are learning / teaching. So us learning something and then reteaching it, how to learn it very well, how to get it to stay in your mind better, and then how to teach that out. It also goes over concepts of how we can utilize NLP in business, which we do go over. The more successful you are in business, the more successful you are financially, the more you can spread out your wealth of information and your joy to the world. If any of you have not read the book, The Science of Getting Rich by Wallace D. Wattles, released in 1903, I recommend you read that book. So whether we meet again or not, take that one home with you. Take that book home with you. You can find it on audiobook for dollars, like 99 cents, $2, because it's over 100 years old. It's in the public domain. It's part of the Gutenberg project. Once again, that's The Science of Getting Rich by Wallace D. Wattles. The first page will blow your mind. It kind of explains how through being rich, through obtaining wealth, we can impact this world in a better way. Which is, if you don't mind, I'm going to take a slight tangent on that. If there's ever a time so far in my life where this world has needed help, and there's an ancient script that I read sometimes, and it basically says, by their actions ye shall know them. I've put forth some effort in my day to travel to other countries, travel to other parts of this country, to see other people and try and help out. But if there's ever been a time where this world, this country, your state, your city, more important, your own house, your own home, and your own self needs and could use a little bit of help, it's now. So help yourself so that you can help others. Please. Please. That would be good. That'd be a good thing. And then the third thing that NLP focuses on is therapy as well, helping other people get over stuff. Kind of a tie-in to that aspect of business and just abundance is this idea that I saw from Warren Buffett once, where he says, how do you expect to control your money if you cannot control your emotions? And I thought that was very poignant, because I see a lot of people who try and set a focus in their lives on money and finance, and they see that as this marker of, if I have a Ferrari out front of my, multi-million dollar mansion, then that's success. And that's a thing. Yet in order to get that, you need to control your emotions. And if there's anything that NLP will teach you, that's one of the things. And it's not just through timeline therapy. One of the other aspects of it is we teach a concept called learning state. It's a lecture that a training that I've been honored to give at the Energy Healing Conference, which is the largest energy healing conference in the world, here in Salt Lake on 3 occasions. And so I give that training as well during this training. But timeline therapy, how to talk to people, how to control your own emotions so that when you're having communications with people, you can negotiate. And that negotiation isn't just for business. That negotiation can be with your spouse. That negotiation can be with your kids. If there's ever a need to negotiate, sometimes it's to negotiate with kids. I actually worked some with adolescents with psychiatric problems, suicidal teens, and final outreach for children with long criminal records. And I do a lot of negotiating with them. And so you learn how to negotiate, and being calm, learning how to control your emotions really helps out with that. So those are some of the things that NLP teaches. To get into the breadth of what is taught during the training and to just review it would take another, just for me to read off the subjects, it's 3 pages. You know, it's literally 3 pages for me to read off what all we go over. But that's kind of a rough idea of what we go over. I'm going to just explain briefly now the layout of how the NLP training will go, if and hopefully you attend, and what some of the dates are, what some of the costs are. And then I'm just going to open it up, let you guys unmute yourselves and ask questions for a little bit. I do want to be off at 8:30 Mountain Time, so I can spend some time with my daughter. We always have some Netflix time, so we can chill. She's 19. She's a fantastic human. Somehow she's turned her life just into this wonderful, better prepared for life than I was at 19. She's just a great kid, and so I love to spend time with her. So anyways, the way that this training goes is usually what happens, the way that I was taught was when people sign up, people can either pay the full price all at once, or I do a 3-part payment plan. After the first payment is received, then I send out the manual, which I ask for you to bring to the training. And also I send out a USB, and that has a whole bunch of recordings. And that's the same recordings that I received when I went through my training from my trainers. And it's over 20 hours of audio that gives you a very, very, very good basis of what NLP is. It gives a very good understanding of what it is. We ask that you listen to that in its entirety at least once before you go through the training, so that you can have a basis, so that when we do come together, that we're all kind of have a foundation to work upon, so that the training can kind of start going forward, so that we have it. Also, so that it has already kind of dropped into your mind some. And so it's kind of that foundation there. Repetition is just the mother of knowledge. It is just this foundation. It's fantastic. And so I send those 2 things out. The reason why I must receive at least the first payment before I send those things out is because I am obligated to pay a royalty to that company that I'm licensed through. And so that's the thing. So that's what I send out. Now, the first 2 days of training that we're doing, the way that I was trained was a 7-day in-person NLP practitioner training. The way that we used to work was the first day was a complete day. Started at about 10 a.m. in the morning, went till about 1. We had about an hour and a half lunch. No, we had an hour and a half lunch. And then we went till about 8 o'clock at night. And then every other day, the start time was at 1 p.m. till 8 p.m. And that's the way the in-person training was. I talked with a lot of my friends from Australia who have been utilizing a system over the past year, and the way that they were doing their trainings was they were shunting it down to a 5-day in-person training. And so that's how I frameworked my trainings, was to do it into a 5-day training. And I was getting ready to do my first 5-day training for April, but then something happened. you know, oops, everything else happened. So, you know, we adjust, we remeasure things, we rethink. And so then I started thinking about it. I thought, 5 days is still kind of a lot sometimes for some people to make an effort to come out for, to do the 1 day of travel out, 5 days in a place, and then 1 day travel back. That's still 7 days. Work schedules are really kind of weird. There's a lot of people who get to work from home remotely, so maybe that would work out in some ways, maybe it wouldn't. But I started thinking about it and thinking of ways that I could adjust this. So I got in contact with the American Board of NLP, timeline therapy, hypnotherapy, threw out an idea to them. To the best of my knowledge, I'm the first person that came up with this idea. Pat on my own back, so proud of myself. Yay, Mike. Yay for me. Best human on the planet ever. Best person ever. Mark, Ray, April, Zach, I want you all to just, send me an award later for pat on my own back for this idea. But the idea that I came up with is, hey, what if we split this up a little bit? What if we make this more manageable for people? Because if I can make this more manageable for people, and this is a technique that I learned from my old buddy, Kirk Duncan, from the Inc. 500 company, training company. He thought to himself years ago, if his main concept was, if I reduce the price of my training, if I make it more accessible to people, I can help more people. And that will really get the outreach out there. And if I can get the outreach out there, then more people will come. And then I'm not really losing money because more people come. So that increased number helps people to come, and I help more people at the same time. And with that, we can maybe hit this critical factor where maybe we have 51% of the people who are thinking in a new way that can maybe change the world to think in a new way to where they can have positive effects in the world. And so with that, the idea that I'm thinking is basically this, is to do it over 2 weekends with what I'm going to call a reminder in a middle weekend. So the first weekend would be a Saturday, Sunday. That way people won't have to take off. People won't have to take off any days in the work week that week. And the dates that I have set for this is September 19th and 20th, which is a Saturday, Sunday. And that's the third weekend in September. I'm looking at a calendar, so that's why I'm not looking at the thing. Mark's laughing hysterically at something. I don't know what's going on there, but he's laughing at something hysterically. Messed his Coke up or something. So that third weekend of September, Saturday the 19th and Sunday the 20th, would be basically almost an all-day event. I do want to adjust a little bit on the Sunday time so that people who do want to worship can maybe make it to an early Sunday session if they are making it to a Sunday session. But that would be a live online training. So that would not require travel from anybody. It would be me set up with a webcam. I wouldn't be using this cam from my computer. I'd just actually be using my Canon M50. I love my gear. So I'd be using my Canon M50 as just the camera, has higher resolution, have my whiteboard up, going over the material, my Yeti Blue Nano, stuff like that. So we've got good quality audio, good quality video, and me going over the material for those 2 days, because those first 2 days, with an adjustment of a few different things, those first 2 days of training can be very well put to you guys by just a knowledge dump. And it will be a knowledge dump. It's just a ton of information that's just dropped in on those first 2 days. Then the next weekend on like Saturday, just a quick 2-hour session where I go over and give a few little responses to questions that people might have on the test that they haven't been able to answer yet. I do ask that you don't come expecting every single answer to the test, but if there's a question here, a question there, it's just a question and answer session. And that's just a free little 2-hour session, maybe 3 hours. You know, if it has to go over to 4 hours, fine, but usually that can get done within 2 hours. And then the second weekend of the real event would be October 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. It's a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and that would be a live in-person event. The reason why that would be a live in-person event is because going over, we can do it. There's ways to do it via phone. There's ways to do it via, via Zoom and stuff like that. I find that it would just be most beneficial for those who could be there live to do it. I can resolve a few questions as well on some other concepts about travel. I know there's questions in regards to COVID, stuff like that. So if there's concerns on those things, feel free to ask me here in just a moment as well. So what that would look like is, show up on a Thursday. I'd like to invite any of you, since this is going to be a smaller group, any of you over to my place for a barbecue that night, Thursday night. I live in a pretty cool neighborhood. I kind of like my neighborhood. Got beautiful view of the mountains, have a little gazebo in the backyard, but just do a barbecue back here. Got a Blackstone grill, kind of do that, and a little fire pit, and then just kind of talk and meet for any of you who would want to do that. And then start early morning at like 9 o'clock on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday of those days. And we just go over the techniques that we do one-on-one with one another, where I do the training, and then we do breakout room where we practice the techniques, and we do those. And then for those of you who would be traveling back on Monday or Tuesday or whatever, for those who would be traveling back later, if you'd want to, I plan on doing a hike with those who would like to go on a hike with me here in some of the Rocky Mountains. We could do an easy hike for those who want to do an easy hike, and we can do a rough hike for those of you who want to do something challenging. In the morning on, oh, Mark's saying yeah for the challenging one. Yeah, I love my Rocky Mountains here. I love the nature. Nature is a beautiful, sacred thing for me. So that's kind of what it is. Now, for those of you who couldn't make it to the live in-person event on October 2nd, 3rd, and 4th, I do have alternative dates in November as well for the 13th, 14th, and 15th. That's another weekend a little further out than a month after that. So that's a secondary date that we could do that. The big question that's probably going through everybody's mind right now would be price, right? That's probably the next big question. I'm not going to do a big sales technique. I'm not going to do this is the normal price because of this, and because of this, and a cut down with a stack of this. I'm not going to do the whole sales thing. I've done that. I do that sometimes, but I'm just going to just shoot it straight shoot it for you guys, just so you know what the price is and find a way for it or not. For me, I'm not looking to become a millionaire off of this. I'm looking to make sustenance off of this, to keep supporting my life and keep supporting my clients. And I still like doing the nursing, so I still do the nursing. So the price is a lot less than what I used to do, what I used to do it for with another company, and for what I had to pay for it. So the price I have is, if somebody wants to pay a one-time payment for it, it's $1,497. If you want to make it over 3 payments, those payments would be, I did math, 565.67. I did it with a calculator though, or a phone. And so that 565.67, if you add that up, you'd see that that's actually about 200 more. That's because I have to do some processing with that, and it increased the time, it increased the cost on my side. So that increased the total cost to $1,697. So that would be the price for the training if you had to split it up amongst 3 payments. I do like to have those payments done before the training, before you arrive. In addition to that, if there's any way that I can make it possible for you guys to show up to the training, it is something that I like helping out with. You know, I'd like you to just think about it in your heart. If it's something you would want to do, you know, without thinking about the cost, without thinking about the time, just think to yourselves, is this something that I would do? Is this something that I would like to help myself with, help my family with, help other people with? Something that would be beneficial for them, either in learning, teaching, business, or therapy. If it was something like that, would I do it? If money wasn't an option, if time wasn't an option, if, you know, getting away from family wasn't the option, wasn't an obstacle, you know, would I do it? Think about that. And then if that is your answer, I would urge you to just, you know, become resourceful. And in the words of T. Harv Eker, you know, the Eker, you know, in the words of T. Harv Eker, you know, try not to think about why I can't do something. Try and think of how I can do something. You know, make the decision of I can do it, and then figure out a way to do it. And usually something opens up. Usually some way kind of comes about. And I truly love the opportunity to spend more time with you guys. When I get to spend time with people, it's something near and dear to my heart. I've been doing it for years in multiple different platforms, as a nurse, as a trainer, as a coach, and I like spending time with people. So that's what I would like to do, is help you guys out. I want to open the time up now, the time remaining. Looks like we got about 21 minutes or so. Open the time up. Just feel free to unmute yourselves if you want to. Ask any question, if it's about the training, if it's about the money, if it's about NLP, if it's about me. Feel free to ask any question.
Hey, Mike, this is Ray.
Hey, Ray, how you doing, man? It's good to put a name with a face.
Yeah, I'm excited to be here, Mike. Thanks for being here. And Mark had me just all in on this for a while now, so I've been excited for this to happen, man. A couple of questions.
Sure.
So, are we going to do the tests for the certification and the in-person event? Is that how it's going to work, or how does the testing piece of it?
Yeah, the testing piece, it's an actual test. So it'll come out with your manual, just in the front folder.
Okay.
And, it's a few pages. Gosh, I can't remember how many pages, 7, 8, 9, 10 pages, something like that. So it's an actual, it'll be printed out. It'll have space in between. What I recommend doing is when you're listening to the audios, if you are not, there's two audios that I will say do not listen to while you're driving a car. Okay.
Okay.
There's two audios that I'm telling you right now. Do not
Wow.
listen to while you're driving a car, and they'll actually mention on them which ones they are. I believe it's number 3 and number 17.
Wow.
I'm not exactly sure on that second one because I just listen to them on random play all the time. But they actually have, one of them's has some timeline therapy stuff, and the other one is them telling them telling a story, and it's actually utilizing hypnotic language patterns, and so it throws you into hypnosis in a way, and so that's not good. And they say don't listen to this one driving. But if you're driving, then don't do it. But if you're at home or something like that, and you have time, you're walking around your house and you're listening it to on your headphones, because you put it into your drive, you put the drive into your computer, downloaded it to your iTunes, or whatever, and then you're listening to it on your phone as you're like doing chores around the house or something like that, or mostly while you're driving or something like that, and you have the test nearby, then a lot of the answers will be there, and so you'll be able to see it. Another thing is there is a table of contents with the manual, and that's how I did a lot of mine. Is I looked through the table of contents and just found what I could find. And some of them were easy, some of them were just hidden, some of them weren't really there. So you just find what you can before you come. Some of them, the answers will be given as we're doing the 2-day Zoom live event. Some of those answers will be there. And if I'm doing the training part and that's one of the answers, awesome, Beth. Good to hear it. We'll connect. Okay, Beth. So, if I'm going over one of those things during that part of the training, then that's fine. Then I'll just say, hey, this concept about personal power, that's the answer. Maybe that's something you want to pull out and write on your test right now. And I'll just give you guys a minute to write it down on your test. This part is talking about, 10 of the presuppositions of NLP. We're going to go over the 10, we're going to go over the presuppositions of NLP. You might want to pull your test out right now and choose 10 of these presuppositions, the 10 that you like most, and write them down right now as I go over them. So stuff like that. So some of those are there. And then there's that free time as well to do it during the answers to the test part. And then during the live part, there's my cute kid right there. Hey, kiddo. And then she's the best. And then literally like the best kid. I know you might think your kid is the best, and that's cool that they're the second best, but my kid is just joking to all of you. But your kid's probably the best for you too. Love my dog. Anyways, but it's not going to be ready until till you come to the live event. And I do want to have it done by day 4, which is day 2 of the live in person, because I want to have it completely out of the way, so your mind isn't worried, your mind isn't thinking about it. And at that time, when we're going over timeline therapy, that's for you. That's for you as a practitioner, and that's for you as a client. And so that's that part. Now, did you say you had another question?
Yeah, just I as far as like the payment, just let me know. I actually have to drop off pretty soon here for my own dad duties, but just let me know. I think I guess we'll hear about it over email and how to register and all that.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think I've got a lot of your guys's texts, so that's probably how I'm going to communicate most with you guys. I will be sending out just a hey, are you interested with just getting on a call with me? I'm not going to be pushy in any ways. I'm not into being a pushy person with a sell. Yeah, that's not me. If somebody's interested and they want to find a way and they want to find a way to be resourceful, I'm glad with helping. I'm not about pushing. That's one of the reasons why I broke up with the company I was working with. I felt that they were very unethical. I won't mention their names. That's for them. It was not the people who trained me. I want to clarify that. It was not the people who trained me. People who trained me were very ethical people, very, very ethical people, very good people. Basically, the easiest way for payment is usually Venmo. If you're not secure with Venmo, if you don't like Venmo, some people don't feel secure with it. There's Zelle, which is ridiculously secure because it's through actual banks, or PayPal. Those are usually the easiest ways. I do like Apple Pay. Some people have done like Facebook, that Facebook Pay and stuff like that. So there's a lot of different options. Square, different. I've done Cash before, that Cash app before, but I think I've only done that like 2 or 3 times. It's kind of gone its way. So we can talk about things. Yeah.
Sounds good.
Cool. All righty.
All right. Thanks, Mike. I'm looking forward to it. I got to drop off, and it's good to see some
I get
familiar
it.
faces. Hi. Hey, Mark. Hey, Didi. Good to see you guys.
Cool.
All right. Looking forward to it, Mike.
All right. Thanks.
All right, thanks. Sorry to drop off.
Question. I appreciate it.
All right. Thanks.
I see you. Is there anyone else?
I think I had a question. Hi, by the way.
I think what's your name?
What time?
You're April. Okay, cool.
Yeah, I'm April. What time frame were you thinking as far as payment goes? Like, how soon before you did your 2-day live would you want payment?
Day before.
Before, okay.
Yeah, that's fine. Like a day before is fine by me. Seriously,
Okay.
and we can talk more about that on a personal level, just one-on-one.
Got it.
On that. So, like being flexible. It's actually one of the NLP presuppositions. It's called the law of requisite variety. It's interesting. The prerequisite, the presuppositions of NLP, which is something we'll go over. It's almost like the 10 commandments of NLP, but there's 18 of them. And so it's funny. I call it the 10 commandments of NLP, but there's like 18 of them. And one of the biggest ones is the law of requisite variety. And basically what that says is the person or the system with the greatest flexibility will have the greatest success. So having flexibility is one of the best things. Like I said, I've been a nurse for 15 years. The majority of that career has been in ICU. This was brought to it within the first 8 months of my career. I've literally worked in some of the best ICUs in the US, which means in the world. And I worked not at the time that it happened. I was only 8 years old when it happened, but I worked in the ICU where the first artificial heart transplant was done. And I worked there for about 4 years. And at a moment's notice, there's a life-changing event, a life-threatening event that will happen in an instant. And you have to be flexible for that. And that happens in all of our lives. It happens in every one of our lives very frequently. Maybe not with, hey, how do I stop this bleed? Hey, which med do I use right now in this code? Hey, who's on the paddles? Anything like that, which are usually just pads nowadays, by the way. It's not usually it's usually pads. But but we have life-changing events just in decisions we make, in how we're dealing with our boss, with a friend, with a complete stranger. Am I going to smile at this person or not? You know, with a kid. And so yeah, so being flexible is fantastic. So we can find some flexibility. We'll chat. Cool. Awesome, April. Cool. Anybody else? Any other questions, April?
How set are you on October 2nd, 3rd, and 4th? I only ask because I would prefer those days versus in November.
Okay. No,
But I was
I'm
just curious.
what I'm doing is that's the first day. I'm going to do another one on the 13th, 14th, 15th. So I'm going to be doing 2 different in-person dates. I have people here.
Okay, got it.
I have 2 people here in Utah that want to do some of the trainings, and a
Got
few
it.
people from San Diego who I've been looking at. Sorry, I'm not looking straight into the camera. I'm looking at your face instead of the camera. That's one of my problems.
I know. I'm looking at, yeah, I'm not looking at the camera
I
either.
know that I'm supposed to look at the camera, but I'm just so good at looking at I'm like so into looking at the face and just analyzing the face. So yeah, the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th, if those are the dates that are most accessible for you, great, come to that one. If somebody's most accessible dates are the 13th, 14th, 15th, then come to those dates.
Okay.
And so I always like to have a second option because it gives people greater flexibility. It was one of the things that used to drive me crazy with the company that I was working with last year as well, is they'd hit a city, they'd hit like Seattle or Atlanta or something like that. And that's the other thing. They would travel around a lot, and they spent so much money doing the travel that I was like, why don't you guys just have a central location, have people come to you? You're spending so much money that the costs that you're incurring by putting it in all these different locations are making it so out of reach for so many people, you know? And so I like having a second date, because they wouldn't have a
Right.
date. They'd be like, no, the person has to come to these dates. We're not giving them a second date. And I was like, we're teaching people to be flexible, but you're not being flexible.
Right.
That's that.
Right.
Yeah.
And then of course I have all the questions. As far as the location for the in-person,
Yeah.
do you have a location picked out? And
I have 2 ideas on that. I had an idea of, and this is something where I would actually like some insight from some of you guys in how you feel about it. Because last year it would have been an easy decision on what I would have wanted to do. I thought of renting, or maybe getting like a large house and having it just kind of like almost like a large house where different people could just pay in a teeny bit and as a place to stay, and then just use that great room as a place to do the teaching. But I'm not sure how some people feel in regards to their safety and security in relation to the COVID stuff that's going on. I personally, I don't want to offend anyone on this. I personally have my own beliefs on, and I read up a ton on this, and I understand a lot of the pathophysiologies of this, and I talk with friends who are actually epidemiologists in regards to this, in regards to the contagiousness of the disease. But I'm not sure how people feel about that. And I also have a location for one of the people who's going to be attending. We have a place next to his office that we could rent out and utilize as well, that could access up to, I believe it's 24 people available for a space as well that we could utilize. So I've got two different. So if people would want kind of like a little cozier feel, which I personally like, but because I like kind of more cozy than like a room, you know, with a board and stuff like that. So I've got those two different ideas, but I've got two different places already.
Okay.
Yep.
I think that was all I wanted to know.
Cool. Hopefully, you know, and here's the thing. Thanks for asking those questions, April, because usually the questions that you ask, other people have. So I really appreciate you asking those.
Thank you.
Thank you. Cool. Anyone else?
Hi, Mike. I'm Amy, and I have a question. Of course, it's COVID related. So,
Yeah. Cool.
should everybody contribute the cost, like the full cost that you're asking for? And COVID, something happens kind of similar to when we were shut down a few, just shortly, not too long ago. Is your in-person training something offered? Should they kind of shut things down kind of like before? As far as travel and lodging and
I'm
or
not quite sure I understand the question. Can you rephrase?
Sure. So like the in-person so I'm here in Oregon, and yeah. And so if in COVID recently we were not to travel, especially I'm a mom and I have 3 kids with compromised immune systems. So while I might be able to travel, it may not be in the best interest of my family. So let's say I couldn't do something in person, however, and I had committed, thought I was going to do something in person and could not. I would obviously be missing a huge training piece to signing up to this. So what would happen in that event for someone like myself if that happened?
Here's an idea, and this is, gosh, I say two, and then as I'm saying two, I'm thinking 3 or 4 different ideas that pop into my mind. So a few different ideas. Let's just say that. I'm not going to number how many ideas because they keep on popping in my mind right now. So a few different ideas on that. One, I completely understand the possible immune compromise people. We need to be safe on that. With that, there's some. Are you the one that I talked to about the vitamin D?
No.
Okay, cool. We'll have to talk about that on another concept. Like there's some really great stuff. So just to help your family out. So let's connect on this. You're Amy?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So let's connect about vitamin D and a few other concepts. Dr. Rhonda Patrick has some very interesting stuff. So we'll just talk about that regardless. You and I later. I'm just making a note. Yeah, good stuff. Good stuff. Very helpful stuff. And we can talk about nerd stuff all day long. Because I'm a nerd. Huge nerd. See, I have my glasses right here. So as I was talking with April, there is that concept of the law of requisite variety. There is the flexibility. So we could do a few different things. It's really interesting as you were saying that, like as a nurse, I've had to come up with solutions to multiple different things. There's been a lot of facilities that I've worked in where we don't have equipment. You would think that we do, but you're like, hey, why doesn't this hospital have one of these doohickeys that we really need? We should have those readily available. Okay, we're going to have to jury rig this somehow. And so we come up with ways to do things. And so as you were saying that, I was just thinking of a very interesting concept is we could have a few computers set up to where you could practice the techniques. You could be a person that somebody could choose, and or you could choose somebody and you guys could do the techniques with somebody who's there, maybe one-on-one.
Sure.
I don't know. I know that there's ways with Zoom to do a group conference and then split people up into groups of different determined sizes. I don't know how to do that yet.
Yeah, they're called breakout rooms.
Yeah, the breakout rooms. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, I'm not sure how to do that yet, but there's ways to do that. I will say this, and this is one thing that I forgot to say in my non-sales pitchy sales pitch, is there's always a money back guarantee. And my money back guarantee is simple. If you're not satisfied with the training through till the last minute of the training, then your money back guarantee. And I'm not playing any games with that because that irritates the crap out of me. We used to sometimes have people who at another company that I was at, not the training company who trained me, not Kirk Duncan, who's a fantastic, very ethical fellow, but another company that I was with, we would have people trying to collect their money from the money back guarantee 2 months afterwards who were calling and we're not getting it back. For me, if I haven't delivered, then I don't deserve it. And more than that, if I haven't delivered, I don't want it.
Sure. Okay.
So there's always
Mike,
Yeah.
Michelle and I will be there as well. And if that kind of situation pops up, her and I could always be the ones tending to people virtually if there was some attending
Right.
virtually.
Yeah, so Michelle's in for sure then, huh?
Yeah.
Boom. Yeah, love Michelle.
Well, I'll be there for sure too.
Cool.
Sweet.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, thank you.
fantastic. Cool. Gonna get with the daughter here in just a second. I do just want to give the opportunity if anybody has any other questions. Let's just get one last out there. Shout out if there's any other questions. Anyone? Bueller?
I just want to clarify something.
Sure.
Oh
I didn't
gosh.
realize everybody on a computer could see me. But yeah, I was eating and I had a frozen soda, and that explains what I was doing to my can.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, you were in camera
Yeah.
for sure, in screen. I was like, what is Mark doing?
Age of COVID meetings. At least you didn't get up with and walk around with just your underwear on.
Yeah, I was waiting to see what he was gonna do because I don't even think he realizes that the mirror behind him also reflected what he was doing off camera.
Oh, you got that.
So you might want to rethink what you're doing.
Well,
Okay?
I was cooking. Whatever.
You can just
Yeah.
see your yeah. Just be careful, Mark.
It's
Careful.
funny, like with some of the training companies that I've worked with, we always said, like, even if you're on just a conference call that doesn't have video, dress how you want to be perceived. And that was just a thing that we've always done.
Yeah.
So we always dress how we perceive. So there's been times where I've just been on a phone call wearing business casual, just always throw that smile out, which is interesting. We'll actually talk about how to build rapport with people, following breathing patterns, language patterns when you're on the phone with someone, which is really cool. Yeah, we'll talk about how I helped out a medical emergency on an airline flight down to Brazil, utilizing breathing patterns with somebody to build rapport and to help eliminate her anxiety and slow her breathing down through breathing patterns. So there's some cool stuff. We'll have some fun. So,
Thank you so much. Get to your daughter.
thank you all. Yeah, gonna chill.
Thank you.
Thanks for
Thank
all of you
you.
being here. Appreciate it.
Thanks,
Yeah,
guys.
Nice to meet you.
hey, good to meet all you guys.
Bye, Mark.
Bye.
Stay off the camera with your cans.
I'm never gonna live this down.
No, you're not.
Bye-bye.
Okay, bye.
Bye.